Next, we'll look at the HSL panel in Lightroom. It's located in the Develop module underneath the Tone Curve panel. HSL stands for Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. Hue refers to the color, saturation refers to the intensity of that color, and luminance refers to the lightness or darkness. In this image, this is what it looked like upon import. Exposure was adjusted, shadows and tone curves were adjusted, black clipping, exposure again, tone curves, dark tones, shadow tones, clarity, vibrance, and then a blue hue shift to shift the blue more toward purple. You can see that in the hue panel there. Next, I'll skip over to luminance on the right panel so you can see what changes were made. Now the purple was made slightly brighter, and although the blue hue was shifted toward purple, it still registered mostly as blue as far as luminance. So the blue was brought way down to make it much darker. And finally, a final highlight tones adjustment. Here, the hue and luminance shifts were also featured in the adjustments. The hue was shifted slightly from blue toward purple. The saturation was not changed, and the luminance, the blue and purple, were made just a bit lighter in tone in the image. And then some cropping. In this image, tone curves were adjusted, as well as vibrance and clarity. And the final adjustment was a slight shift toward purple or lavender, and that is in the HSL hue category. In this image, the clarity was adjusted to bring out some of the texture detail. Overall vibrance was adjusted. Light tones and tone curves. The adjustment brush was used, which we'll get to in a later module, to bring some detail to the eye area. Some clarity added, and then a purple hue shift. And that is reflected over here in the HSL panel on the right in the hue. So essentially purple was taken toward magenta to get that hue shift in the image. This image has been adjusted slightly using tone curves to bring out a little bit of the contrast and then some clarity to emphasize the texture. I'm going to hop over in HSL to the saturation area. Some photographers and photography clients enjoy something called selective desaturation. Say, for example, I wanted to remove all of the color in this particular image except for purple. I can do that by sliding all of the colors down except for purple, and we'll see how that works. Another thing we can use is the target adjustment tool, similarly to tone curves, and just click on that, click on the image itself. You see that that area of the image was represented by both red and orange, and I took the saturation down in those. To use the sliders again, I just need to click on the little target adjustment tool to deactivate it. So perhaps I want to take down the yellow. There looks to be a tiny bit of green in the image. Aqua, I'm surprised that bottom left wasn't represented by aqua, so that was blue. Now the purple I might want to bring up a little bit in saturation, and then the magenta seems not to really affect anything in the image. Okay, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I want to bring back a little bit of the yellow and the blue so it's not so blatant, more of a subtle selective desaturation. Some people love it, some people hate it. If you do choose to use the selective desaturation, remember it doesn't have to be all the way. It can be used very intentionally and subtly to not necessarily desaturate a single color, but just partially could work fine, and really have it make sense and not just do it to go through the motions. Do it with a purpose in the image in mind. That concludes this review of the HSL panel.